Now this next section is directed all towards the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to make a story from that story. But first of all, you want to know how much the children actually understand about the story. And one of the ways that you can do that is by taking some sheets with the letters of the alphabet on. And what you do is you ask the children for some words that start with these letters and you write them down. My advice is to always try and make a story in a group situation where the children gain confidence by watching other children who perhaps have a larger and wider vocabulary freely giving out words. And if the children shout out these words and you write them down, then you can use them to actually tell the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. Well, I don't have the dubious pleasure of having a class full of children in my front room, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to try and think of some words, but you would throw it open to the children, and of course you would say, I'll only ask those children who put their hands up. But we'll start with the letter A, and well, A could be angry, because you've got quite a lot of different people inside of the story who are angry. The mother is angry with Jack because he's so lazy. The giant's an angry giant. Well, B, well that's pretty easy. You could always go for beanstalk or just the beans. C, well there's the cow and the coins that come in later on. D, well it could be that you're expecting that it's going to be dead, or it's dire, or it's a dreadful place. So a dreadful place that he goes to, up the beanstalk. And as he goes up, he could be E for excited and frightened. Well, I don't know about you, but if I was going up a beanstalk, I'd be pretty frightened. G for giant. Well, that's quite easy. And straight away we've got a list of words that are directly related to the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. Angry, beans, cow, coins, dreadful, excited, frightened, and the giant. Well, as you'll see when we come to do the technology with this story, you'll find that what I've done is I've done quite a number of the portions of the story, the beginning and the middle and the end. I've linked those to different colours. Well, one of the things you can do, as well as just having them all in one colour, you could maybe change colour, so that when the children say to you, I don't know how to write the word frightened, you can say it's the word beside the F, just under the red E, because it's a vowel. So let's have a little look. The H for the house that he lives in. And there's a harp later on. Let's see. Let's think about this, and we'll try these in different colours. Well, he goes in. Yes. Well, obviously J for Jack. Let's put that in another colour. So, yeah, Jack jumped. The giant was going to kill him if he found him. All of that fee, fi, fo, fum stuff is not conducive to him wanting to keep him alive. Perhaps knew. L, looked. And I know when I do this work with little children, the M always stands for the mam. By putting them in different colours, you can see for those children, as this would be left on the wall, you would say to the children that the word mam is written in blue. It's at the bottom of the second sheet on the left hand side. All of this is about enquiry skills, and also it stops the children forming a queue the full length of your classroom. So we've got quite a lot of the words, the vocabulary that is related to the story of Jack and the Beanstalk. Well, N, well, nervous. Yeah, nervous. The O for the oven, because that's where he goes. P for people. Peeped. He peeped out of the oven. You had to be quiet and quick. You do realise that with all of these words, you've got these things like the new, that begins with the K, so it's a silent K that you have at the beginning of there. Perhaps some of the things that might come up, the cows, the coins were a circle, and all of these quiet and quick, especially with the younger children. You find that this idea of emphasising that it starts with a QU, but it is like a hard K sound. He ran, shouted, what about that giant? Well, he was terrible. I'll write that in red. Quite like the idea. Again, you're looking at the way that you're displaying these words so that the children cannot say to you, I don't know how to write, because they've got an aide de memoire on the board or up on your something smart board or just up on the wall, and all of these things, well, if you want to, you could get some pictures that go with the beans and the cows and the coins, the giant, the house and the harp, and all of these pictures could be put by the side of these words. Anyway, we're up to T. I suppose one of the things that we're really emphasising with Jack and the Beanstalk is that the giant is above and Jack is under. So he lives really in a kind of an underworld. So U for under, V for very. No, and I'm not going to write it twice, like very, very. Worried. Or wonderful. I know that I did say that you've got to let all of the letters of the alphabet. Well, sometimes you might just have to miss one out. Yelled. And if you want to try and give the children puns, well, you've got the Z for sleeping. So if you look at it, we've got quite a wide variety of different words there. Not just nouns, but some which are about feelings, some are about the settings, and you've made quite a mixture of words here. And with a little practice, you can get the children to do this, especially the older ones, where you tell the story starting at the letter A and running your way all the way through, as far as you possibly can, to the end of the alphabet. Jack's mother was very angry with him because when he went out, instead of getting money, he got beans for the cow. She was wanting coins. He felt dreadful, but when he saw the beanstalk, he was very excited. As he climbed, he was very frightened because he'd heard stories that there was a giant at the top of the beanstalk. But as he walked along a road, he saw that there was a huge house, and he could hear harp music coming from inside. And when he went in, Jack jumped when he heard that the giant wanted to kill him, for he knew that if he looked, he would find him inside and hiding. His mum would be frightened too if she knew just exactly where Jack had gone. He was nervous as he was inside of the oven, and he peeped outside, but he was very quiet. And as he found that the giant had gone to sleep, he quickly ran out and shouted to his mother that he'd got the coins from off the giant. It was a terrible job to go back from being underneath that beanstalk, but very quickly, even though he was worried, he went up and up and up to that beanstalk, and there he found that he got the hen. There he found that he got the harp. But when the giant was chasing after him, he yelled for an axe and chopped the beanstalk down. And that was the end of the giant, and that was the end of the beanstalk. But Jack lived happily ever after. Now, another way of making up a story from another story is that you take that story and everything that's in it, you turn it around and you make it into opposites. So if it's Jack and the Beanstalk, well, here are the 5 questions of who, where, what, why and when, beginning, middle and end of the story. So what we're going to do is, well, who is it going to be? Well, if it's a boy as Jack, then it's going to be a girl who could be called Jane. Right? And it's Jack and the Beanstalk, so instead of going up, she will go down. and it could be a tunnel or a pit or a cave. So Jane, the cave, okay, in a dark cave, Jane and the cave, and Jack is a lazy boy in the story, so she could be a hard worker, so we'll put that in, someone who works hard work, and if you think about it, in Jack and the Beanstalk, that they're very poor, so we could say that she's rich. So straight away you've just taken that story and almost turned it up on its side or on its head, and you've got Jane who goes into a cave, she's a hard worker and she's rich. And yet again I've done them in different colours so that the children know that from these, that Jane is written in black, the cave's written in blue, she's a hard worker is written in red, so they know how to use these words. And if you think of it as the first sentence, Jane was a girl who had to go inside of a cave. She always worked hard, and for all of her hard work she found that she was rich. Different story, but again it's just using the skeleton of Jack and the Beanstalk to try and make it just slightly different. Well, we've already said a cave, so where could they be? If you think about Jack and the Beanstalk, they live in a village that's far away from London. So where could they live? They could live in a city. A city. Well, you would always say, what kind of a city? So, like a huge city. So let's put that. A city that was huge. And it's busy. We'll say, yeah. So it's a busy city. And what was she doing at the beginning? Well, if you think about Jack, he was always lying in bed. So what was she doing? She was perhaps, I'll put it in a different colour, we'll say that she was up early and working, and it was a cow in the story. Now I'm not saying that the sheep's exactly the opposite of a cow, but we could say that up early and herding sheep. Okay, so Jack and the Beanstalk, Jane and the cave, hard worker, rich, up early, herding sheep. Why was she out herding the sheep? Not because she was told by her mother, but because she wanted to, because she liked to do it. Why? Because she liked to work. Again, if the children say, I don't know how to write the word work or liked to work, you say they are the blue words right beside the Y. She liked to work, and Jack had to go to market and he had to walk along a road and he didn't want to walk, so we could say that she ran. She ran as she herded the sheep. And when did it happen? Well, in Jack and the Beanstalk it usually starts early in the morning, so we'll say it was late in the evening that she went out. She liked to work, late evening, and you know, I've got to say I've read several versions of Jack and the Beanstalk, and there's not one of them that mentions unpleasant weather, so let's say that it was raining. Can you see what happens? That when you use the different colours, the children will look and they'll see a word here that starts with an R and a word here that starts with an R. But what you can say to them is, it's not the short word that's written in red beside the Y, it's the long blue word at the end of the line beside the word when. So straight away, just by taking the story, turning it on its head, you've got this as a part of the story. Jane lived in a cave and always worked hard, and for all of her hard work she found that she was rich. Right beside where she lived there was a city, a huge city, where everyone was busy. But Jane would get up early. She would want to herd her sheep, for everyone needed wool, and everyone would like some of that beautiful sheep's milk cheese. She liked to work, and instead of walking slowly, she would run. And on this late evening, as the rain fell down, that's a different story. But here we go, at the beginning. Well, what happens at the beginning of the story? Jack is given some beans, he's tricked. Well, let's say it's the opposite. She goes and she finds coins. She gets the coins straight away, and she finds that her mother isn't unhappy with her. Her mother is pleased. Mother's pleased, and instead of being sent to bed without any supper, they have a huge meal. Now, one of the things you could say that she gets these coins, and Jack and the Beanstalk, you've got it so that he's fooled. Well, it could be that Jane fools somebody, not necessarily because she's evil, but because she's found a way of somebody who didn't know how much the sheep were worth. So she feels bad about that. It's bad about that. So now we have the middle of the story where she returns. So she's going to go back to maybe give more sheep, or give the gold back. And at the end of the story, well, I certainly wouldn't recommend that what you do is you make it so that they live unhappily ever after. It could be that she meets, not a man dressed all in green, but meets the woman who says it was like a test. And let's try a different colour. A test for her honesty. Alright. So instead of Jack and the Beanstalk, we have Jane. Jane lived in a cave and always worked hard, and for all of her hard work, she found that she was rich. This cave was in a city that was huge and always busy, and every morning she would get up early and herd her sheep, for everyone needed the milk and everyone wanted wool. She liked to work, she ran to work, and one late evening when the rain was falling, she met someone, a woman, who gave her coins, a lot of coins for all of the sheep. Her mother was pleased and the two of them had a huge meal. But Jane felt bad. She wanted to go back to give the gold back to the woman who had bought the sheep. And when she did meet that woman, she gave her even more gold, because this had been a test to find out how honest she had been. Now, so far we've looked at stories, and we've looked at opposite stories, and we've thought about how we can use an alphabet. So now we're going to try something that's a little bit different. We're going to make up a story using elements that are from the Jack and the Beanstalk story. And to this end, I've got a carrier bag here, handcrafted out of solid plastic, and I've put 5 objects inside of this bag. I'm going to take them out at random. And what you do is you have this with the children. You would have them all sitting, and you would choose those children who are sitting well, or even on a rota basis, where you would get them to take things out of the bag, and you would take 3 things out, one for beginning, one for middle, and one for the end of the story. And you would use your imagination. Use your imagination to develop a story. Well, so far we've had the alphabet story, and we've had Jane, who was in the cave. So we're going to try and make up a story which is suitable for foundation stage to key stage 1 and early key stage 2. And what we'll have is, well, so far we've had a girl and we've had Jack, so let's choose a man. So we'll have a man in our story. And again, this is from persistent questioning of the children. You would say, who could it be? A man, a boy, a woman, or a girl? So we're going to have a man, and let's think we could have him so that he would be good, a good man. A good man, and this good man, perhaps, unlike Jack, he could be helpful. So let's put that in a different colour. He'd be a helpful man. Again, we'll keep going back to this idea of opposites. So it's not having to think of something from your own imagination, it's using the skeleton of the story to develop another story. So this man, he's good, he's helpful. I suppose if he's helpful, he could be strong. So straight away, a man who's good, who's helpful and strong. And with the Jane story, we had her in a city, and with Jack and the Beanstalk, you've got him in the countryside. So why don't we say that he's at the seaside? One of the things that you can do is, if you've got a word like seaside, then you'll write it in blue. So it's a direct representation of what it actually is. And again, you would say, I'm not going to let you get away with saying just the seaside. What kind of a seaside? Well, you could say it's a rough and a rocky seaside. There's no reason why we can't have a little bit of alliteration inside of a story. Well, what could he be doing at the beginning? Well, I don't know about you, but if I was by the side of the sea, I'd probably be fishing rather than... so he's fishing. If he's helpful and he's good, we could say that he's fishing and he's singing. Fishing and he's singing, and what is he doing? Well, he's fishing and he's singing, and again it could be that it's by sitting by a pool, a rock pool. Sitting by a rock pool. What kind of a rock pool? Filled with seaweed. Again, it's this thing of from nothing, you're starting just by questioning to keep getting the children to try and think of some answers. And why is he there? Well, it could be that he's happy to be there. If he's fishing, it could be that he's hungry. Yet again, a little bit of alliteration never did anybody any harm. And when could it be? Well, you've got to admit that if you read one more, it was on a fine and a sunny summer's morning, well, all something our brains will explode. So let's make it a winter's day, winter's afternoon. I suppose to a certain extent that's going against the type of stories that children are used to. It was on a fine and a sunny summer's afternoon. Well, if it's a winter's afternoon, we can say that it's going to be cold. Again, if it's cold, we can put it in for blue. As you'll see from the technology, that what we're trying to do is we're trying to link colours and emotions. So when we're writing about sad, we're using very dark colours, very blues. So there's no reason why this can't leak into the literature. Okay, so there we go. From just asking questions, we've now got a good and helpful man who's strong, sitting by the side of the seaside. The seaside that's rough and rocky. He's fishing and singing by a rock pool that's filled with seaweed. He's happy but hungry, and on this winter's afternoon it is very cold. Well, that's a pretty good story. I don't know about you, but I'd be very pleased if I got that written down. So here we have the plastic bag, okay, with the object inside, and I'm just going to stick my hand inside, and out comes a musical instrument like the harp. Strangely enough, I didn't have a harp in the house, and you could say musical instrument. Well, what could it be? Remember, he's singing. So what could he hear that would be represented by a musical instrument? Well, why couldn't he hear music? What kind of music? You would say sweet. You can hear sweet music in the air. Where can it be coming from? Where could this sweet music be coming from? Well, why not from the crashing waves? And it sounds as if it's coming from the crashing waves in this rough and rocky sea. So, I don't know about you, but if I was sitting there on a winter's afternoon and I was cold and I heard music, then I would be very curious. I know that for little children this often comes out as being nosy, but we'll just say curious. He was curious about this music. What could it do? Could it stop him fishing? Could it stop him singing? What would it do? If you suddenly heard music, then perhaps we'll put that in, like stop his singing. You've got to admit that this is a better story than Once Upon a Time There Was a Banjo. we've taken the music part of Jack and the Beanstalk and we've developed it so that, good catch, we've developed it so that there's quite a lot more to the story. So sweet music from the crashing waves, he's curious and he stops his singing. So, now, put my hand inside the bag and we've got a cup with a hen on it. So, strangely enough, I don't have any hens in the house, but so we've got this. So what could it be? What kind of job would he have that would involve having hens around? Well, we could say that he was the chicken man or a farmer. Let's say that he's a farmer. A farmer, and quite often with a story, rather than just relying on the direct what it is, you could see how that affects his environment. So maybe it could be that you can hear the chickens. You can hear the chickens, hear the hens. He hears hens, or maybe the cockerel. And he knows that you really should go back. But this curiosity thing. So here's the hens, and we'll put on should go back. But he doesn't. Because that wouldn't be much of a story. He heard sweet music coming from out of the sea, he heard his chickens, he knew he should go back, and then he went back. The end. Let's have something else about emotions and senses. He's there in that place. He stopped his singing. He could be almost open mouthed, so he's going to get some of the spray from this. So the spray, what kind of spray? Well, we'll say salty spray. Salty spray and sea. I quite like that. That's 3 words that all start with an S. So you should go back and you can taste the salty spray of the sea on his lips. What kind of lips? Okay, so we need to make this story come to an end. And out of the bag comes a bag of beans. Well, winter time, winter's afternoon, perhaps the time when he should be planting beans. So should be planting crops, but he doesn't. Let's make a big thing out of this curious part. Should be planting his crops, but he's curious. Oh, go on, I'll put in nosy. He's nosy, and he doesn't go back. And well, you can always say that. I don't see any reason why we can't have a sad ending or a poignant ending that goes with this. Curious, he's nosy, so he follows the singing. And rather than it being like a desperately sad story, why don't we say follows the singing and travels and returns. Travels, say maybe like how long? How long does it take him to travel and find this? Travels for 1 year. Okay, well this is a better story then. Once upon a time there was a banjo, a cup and some beans. He was a man, a good man, helpful and strong. And now as he sat by the seaside, by the rough and rocky sea, he was fishing and singing. He sat by the side of a seaweed-filled rock pool. He was happy but hungry. That was why he'd gone fishing. And on this winter's afternoon that was so cold, he could hear sweet music that seemed to come from underneath the crashing waves. He was very curious to find out where this music was coming from, and it made him stop his own singing. He was a farmer. And in the distance he could hear hens, and the hens reminded him that he should have gone back to his farm. He should have gone back. But standing there, with his mouth open when he'd stopped his singing, he could feel the salty spray from the sea on his lips. He knew that he should have gone back. He should have been planting his crops so that they would grow strong again. Strong in the spring and the summer, ready for the autumn to be taken out of the ground. But He was so curious that he rubbed at his nose and thought that he would try and find out where the singing was coming from. And he followed the singing, and he travelled. He travelled for 1 year, never to return to his own farm for 1 year. The crops had gone. The farm was overgrown. But he decided that he would never go and sit by the side of the rock pool that was filled with seaweed, for his curiosity would make him travel, and he would forget to plant his crops. Alright, so far we've had the Jack and the Beanstalk as an alphabet, we've had Jane in a cave, we've had a man who was strong. Let's have, for this last one, which is the Key Stage 2, up to adult ages, we're going to have a woman. Well, so far everybody's been pretty good. So why don't we have it so that this woman is bad? Now with children, I don't know whether it's a diet of EastEnders or Hollyoaks or all of the other things that they see, that this idea of being bad usually involves breaking bones or killing or burying them under the patio. So let's try and keep this within the bounds of reason, and we'll just say that this bad part is that she's a thief. And there's nothing that she wouldn't steal. In fact, it's everything. Everything that isn't hers is what she wants. So she steals everything. Anything that isn't tied down, nailed down, she will try and find. So we've had the seaside, we've had a city, we've had a village. So why don't we say that this is going to be, say like a town. So it's going to be a town. And I'll put that in a different colour. And even though the children are older, or the pupils are older, you're going to find that there's nothing that stops them from having an aide de memoir like this up on the smartboard or just there, because older children will turn round and they'll say, I don't know what to write. But what you're doing is, it's almost like a jigsaw puzzle. There was a woman who was terribly bad. She was a thief who would steal everything. She lived in a town. And it's just a case of using the connectives and all of the other parts of writing to take this like a jigsaw puzzle and make it into a fuller picture. Okay, so we're going to say a village. We'll say a village that's large. Because if you think about it, if it was a small town, then everyone would know that it was her that had stolen these things. So a town that's large, and let's say that we're going to make it so that it's quite distinct, and instead of having say flat roads, we'll make them cobbled streets. Cobbled streets, and we'll say in a town, and we'll say that it's trees. There are trees. If nothing else, she's going to need somewhere to hide, so it's going to trees line the streets. Okay, what is she doing? Well, I don't know. Let's say if she's a thief, perhaps she's trying to think about a plot or plotting or a scheme. She's going to plot what it is that she's going to steal. And I don't see any reason why it always has to be something concrete, something physical. Let's say she's going to try and steal somebody else's life. Maybe that's what she wants to do, swap places with somebody. So she's plotting, so like a life, plotting to steal a life. Not to take a life, but to steal somebody else's life that's perhaps better than hers, happier than hers. If you're always stealing things, it might be a case of she wants to steal happiness. She wants to steal somebody else's life, and because as a thief she's probably without friends, or friends, no friends, or perhaps with older children it could be like, say you would say like not no friends, but it would be like a friendless, yeah, perhaps a better way of putting it in. And here it's because she wants to change her life. Not perhaps that she doesn't want to stop being a thief, but she wants to change her life, and that could be something that she's actually saying to herself. And she's taking all of this on a summer's day. Why not? Terrible things happening in the brightness of a summer's day. Okay. Well, I've replaced one of the objects because otherwise we wouldn't have sufficient. So I'm going to take out of the bag, and it's a flower. So she can smell something sweet in the air. Sweet smell in the air. It could also be something that relates to her, that perhaps she's like a good gardener, or she has green fingers. Well, the nearest I've got to green is brown, so she's got green fingers. You do realise that this would be one session. You wouldn't immediately, you do the who, where, what, why and when as one section, and then perhaps the beginning as another session, and then the middle as another session from that. Okay, hand in the bag. A deep well, why not? If it's this town and there's smell of flowers in the air and she's a gardener, there's going to need she's going to need that, the fact that there's going to have to be sweet water, a deep well. Well, why not use the picture at the front, the sound of chickens. Quite like this well, this idea of the well. Okay, last thing in the bag. Sure there is something in there. Bottom of the bag, a coin. Like the coins from Jack and the Beanstalk. So, the well, well, my first idea is like, from the well it would be the money that people wish with. Money, the wishes by the well, and perhaps she finds it. But it changes her life. But not perhaps filled with happiness. Okay. It was a woman, a bad woman. And if anyone knew her, they would have known that she was a thief. Because quicker than a wink or a blink of an eye, her hands would reach for everything that wasn't hers. She lived in this large town with its cobbled streets, and the trees lined the streets. But now she was plotting to steal something. Steal someone else's life, perhaps their happiness. She had no friends, she was friendless. And she wanted to change her life. And this is what she whispered to herself upon this summer's day. There was a sweet smell of flowers in the air. And it reminded her that for all of the bad things that she did, she was a gardener. And she had green fingers. For just a glance would make flowers pop up from out of the ground. And as she walked and hid between the trees by the deep well, she could hear the sound of chickens in the air. And now she couldn't believe her luck, for the sunlight lit up the money that had lain upon the ground for those people who had wished for things but had missed the well. And now she found it. She picked it up with her long straight fingers and put it inside of her pockets. And as she walked, people could hear the rattle of the coins in her pockets. And they knew that she was a thief. For now she had money, and her life was changed. But she did not find happiness, for everyone knew her as the thief.